Next on Currents News, President Trump kicked off New York City's annual Veterans Day Parade, a first for any commander-in-chief. Emily Drooby was on Fifth Avenue.
American pride is strong here today on Fifth Avenue for the 100th anniversary of this parade. We spoke with veterans and active service members about just how important today is. I'm Emily Drooby, and that's ahead.
We also have the story of vets from Brooklyn and Queens. Today, we're honoring their service and sacrifice.
Good morning, brothers and all here present.
And the United States bishops are all together in one place. Names are on the ballot. They're about to decide who will be their new shepherd-in-chief. New deacons for the Diocese of Brooklyn. They're one step closer to becoming priests. Plus, a local congressman and staunch defender of life announcing he will not seek re-election come 2020. The news starts right now.
To every veteran here today and all across our land, you are America's greatest living heroes, and we will cherish you now, always, and forever.
A tribute from the Commander-in-Chief this Veterans Day from behind bulletproof glass. His visit marks a historic first. Good evening, I'm Tamara Lane. For the last 100 years, America's heroes have marched down Fifth Avenue. But today, they received a special salute. Donald Trump became the first sitting president to kick off commemorations in New York City. Emily Drooby is standing by along the parade route.
Tamara, was a very special salute indeed. Veterans and active service members from around the country heard the president's supportive words today. Many here tell me it doesn't matter your political affiliation, it's a great honor. God Bless America rang out as a sea of red, white, and blue filled Fifth Avenue. The Veterans Day Parade, a time-honored tradition that started a century ago. But this year was historic as President Donald Trump became the first sitting U.S. president to take part in the festivities, kicking off the day with a speech at Madison Square Park.
Our veterans risked everything for us. Now it is our duty to serve and protect them every single day of our lives.
Veterans and active service members alike tell us they're grateful for the appearance.
I've never been this close to the president. Obviously, he's my commander-in-chief, so it's a huge honor for me.
Trump is a longtime supporter of the parade. In the past, he's donated to and helped raise money for the beloved New York tradition. The president was joined by over 30,000 spectators and veterans from all generations, including Medal of Honor recipient Herschel Woody Williams, who was impressed with the massive patriotic crowds lining the parade route.
Well, if you're not thrilled about this, I don't know what can make you thrilled. It just speaks a tremendous amount about New York. It is a patriotic city, there's no question about that.
The World War II veteran, one of the parade's grand marshals, and one of 18 million veterans living in this country. USA! But as another veteran, Tom Crockett, explains, today isn't just for people like him and Woody.
A lot of them have given their lives too. You know, a lot of them are not here to celebrate with us. You know, they served and they died, you know, for their country.
Tom also excited to see President Trump take part in the parade today. Of course, not everyone was happy to see the president. There were plenty of protesters out here today, but many of the people I spoke with around the parade route say today is not a day for politics. It's a day to come together as a country and celebrate our veterans. In Manhattan, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
This Veterans Day, Americans are making a special point to honor the greatest generation before they leave this earth. According to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, 16 million Americans served in World War II. There are less than 400,000 alive and 294 die each day. Meanwhile, the vice president honored soldiers who made the ultimate sacrifice at Arlington National Cemetery.
Present, arms!
Mike Pence placed a wreath on the tomb of the unknown soldier. The monument is dedicated to the service members who lost their lives, and their remains have never been identified. Be sure to buy the tablet newspaper for even more Veterans Day coverage. Among the amazing stories you can find, an in-depth report on the health issues facing veterans returning from war. Snapshots of local veterans whose dedication to their country is only matched by their faith in God. And a touching tribute on why remembering our service men and women is more important now than ever. Turning now to today's other big story in the Catholic Church. The United States bishops are in Baltimore for their annual assembly. The election of a new president will top this year's agenda. The bishops are also voting on several action items, including a special document ahead of the 2020 presidential election. Today was day one of the USCCB's semi-annual Conference of Catholic Bishops gathering in Baltimore to tackle some of the church's most urgent issues.
Angels of the Lord, bless the Lord.
Once again, clerical sex abuse, a major part of the agenda as they try to turn the page on the crisis.
We have learned how we must strive for justice for the victims of sexual abuse. We must never stop striving for this justice and working unceasingly to prevent any future abuse from happening.
Also on the docket, bishops will vote on a teaching document that addresses political responsibility of Catholics. This as new leaders of the conference are slated to be elected. Outgoing President Cardinal Daniel DiNardo making his final address earlier today.
Let's begin anew. Thank you, brothers, for the last 3 years.
Cardinal DiNardo is expected to be succeeded by Archbishop Jose Gomez of Los Angeles, the nation's largest Catholic diocese. If chosen, Gomez would be the USCCB's first Hispanic leader. The Vatican's Apostolic Nuncio, Christophe Pierre, spoke about the migration problem at the border.
The Pope has emphasized certain themes: mercy, closeness to the people, discernment, accompaniment, a spirit of hospitality toward migrants, a dialogue with those of other cultures and religions.
The Mexican-born Archbishop is one of the church's biggest advocates for migrant rights. In the spotlight again this week as the Supreme Court plans to hear arguments tomorrow on the latest DACA appeal. Bishop DiMarzio and other leaders from the Brooklyn Diocese are not attending the fall conference because it coincides with the New York area's ad limina visit to the Vatican. Regularly scheduled meetings where the church leaders are called to Rome to meet with Pope Francis. They will be watching a live stream of the USCCB's meeting and then casting their votes by paper ballot. There's 10 bishops listed on the presidential ballot, but many are speculating tonight that the Archbishop of Los Angeles, Jose Gomez, will win the most votes. He's currently the USCCB vice president, and he's served alongside the current leader, Cardinal Daniel DiNardo, for the last 3 years. The bishops almost always elect the VP as the new shepherd-in-chief. Once the new president is elected, the assembly chooses from the remaining candidates for the position of VP. And that's really a toss-up at this moment. For more now on that topic, Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, joins us now from Baltimore. Christopher, thanks so much for being with us.
Good to be with you, Tamara.
Tomorrow is the big day. Can you explain to us how the election process works? It's more of a nomination system, isn't it?
That's right. So other bishops nominate their brother bishops for these posts, and they take the top 10 of the bishops that are both nominated and agree to run. So the top 10 names aren't necessarily the top 10 that were nominated, but those who actually agreed. So a bit of a caveat there.
Do you have a feel on what kinds of qualities the bishops are looking for in a leader?
Yeah, well, one of the things that it's most important for the U.S. Bishops' Conference president and vice president to do is conduct the affairs of the U.S. bishops in Rome. So often they want a bishop that has experience in Rome, that they've either worked in the Roman Curia before or can speak Italian. Often they want to look toward a leader that is a more moderate, that can unify both sort of the more progressive and the traditional wings of the conference and sort of serve as a bridge and a unifying force.
Well, now going into tomorrow, are there any likely picks for vice president that you can think of?
Sure. So I think the two frontrunners at this point would be Archbishop Alan Vigneron of Detroit and Archbishop Paul Coakley of Oklahoma City. Both men are viewed very similarly. Coakley is a bit younger, Vigneron is at 71. So I think if one of the two were to have an edge, it would probably be him just because he's been around longer and is better known.
Okay. Well, the bishops also have a plan to help lead the country through the 2020 elections. Can you tell me how they're tackling this growing divide in the country?
Well, sure. So, I mean, what we're seeing at a lot of different levels within the conference through the various committees is a huge push for civility. And this morning, when Cardinal DiNardo gave his final remarks, he says, as Catholics, we have to be different leaders. And he said it starts with simply being courteous. And so, this sort of idea of being civil in national dialogue is something that each committee within the U.S. Bishops' Conference, whether it's religious liberty or issues taken up such as gun control, abortion, immigration, they're trying to look at how civility can sort of be infused in the language that they use to talk about these issues.
Interesting. Well, we look forward to your continued coverage through this important conference. Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Tamara.
6 New York seminarians took a big step in their journey to priesthood this weekend. They were ordained transitional deacons, one of the final steps in formation before becoming priests. The 6 men, including 2 from the Diocese of Brooklyn, 1 from the Archdiocese of New York, and 3 from the Diocese of Rockville Center. Cardinal Timothy Dolan presided over the liturgy at St. Joseph's Seminary in Yonkers and gave them this advice.
You're never going to lose the diaconate, fellas. You're always going to be deacons, and you always should be. That's part of your vocation. That will be part of your priesthood. I'm still a deacon. In fact, that's right. Look, I wear the dalmatic, all right? Last thing I need is another layer of clothes. But anyway, I got the dalmatic to remind me that, Dolan, you're a deacon still. You're a deacon too, and I'm glad I am.
We are called as a deacons to serve the people of God. I wish to fulfill that very good.
So honestly, whatever church expects of me, whatever they give me, I will do.
As deacons, the men can now take part in sacraments such as marriage and baptism. They can also preach during Mass. The men could be ordained priests as soon as 6 months. Over now to the nation's capital. Congress is gearing up for the public impeachment inquiry. Live hearings are set to start Wednesday. At issue is the whistleblower complaint alleging President Trump tried to pressure Ukraine into investigating Joe Biden and his son. Trump will be occupied when the hearings begin. He's invited the Turkish president to the White House for a joint press conference that day. Trump has repeatedly denied any wrongdoing. At the same time, the Supreme Court is gearing up for the long-running battle over the fate of Dreamers. Tomorrow, the court will hear oral arguments about President Trump's move to end Obama-era protections for undocumented immigrants brought to the U.S. as children. It will be one of the most closely watched cases of its term. A ruling could change the deportation status of nearly 700,000 people. Also on the Hill, a powerful pro-life congressman who once chaired the House Committee on Homeland Security has announced he will not be seeking re-election. Peter King, a Republican representing New York, said his prime reason for retiring after 28 years of service is to spend more time with his wife and grandchildren. King is one of several Republicans, 4 senators and 17 other House members who have announced plans not to seek re-election. When we come back tonight, a special salute to our veterans.
He just kept saying he never thought he would really graduate high school.
The story of a World War II sailor who received his diploma 75 years after deployment. Plus, memories of Iwo Jima. Current News sits down with a soldier who witnessed the U.S. flag flying like never before. And a new trend in the military. Our armed forces don't have the same face they used to. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back.
Looking at his diploma, he just kept saying he never thought he would really graduate high school.
Instead of finishing his education, Margaret Quinlivan says her father, Joe, dropped out of school. It was 1942 and World War II was raging. So instead of moving the tassel on his high school graduation cap, he put on a steel helmet and defended our country. This Veterans Day, Current News is taking a look back at how the Catholic hero finally got a gift he always wanted. Emily Drooby has that story from Sheepshead Bay.
In Joseph Quinlivan's Brooklyn home sits a plaque that reads, "Freedom is not free." It's something the World War II vet understands well.
It's a great country, and you should save it.
At just 16 years old, Joe left high school to help his family get through the Great Depression. 2 years later, in 1944, he enlisted in the Navy.
Where I lived, everybody went into the service.
He was stationed in the Pacific.
Well, a couple of air raids, but the planes got stopped before they reached where we were.
During the 2 years he spent fighting for his country, Joe was awarded many medals for bravery, but there's one recognition he never received: a high school diploma.
My father worked very hard his whole life, any overtime he could get to provide us with what we needed. And it was hard for him because he didn't, have those degrees.
That is, until now.
How do you feel?
Feel good.
His daughter, Margaret Quinlivan, explains her family surprised him this past Father's Day.
We just put the cap and gown on him. He didn't know why. And then my brother presented him with a diploma and read it, and he was very happy.
The family using a national program called Operation Recognition, which allows World War II, Korea, and Vietnam veterans to earn high school diplomas if they left school without graduating. Margaret says it was pretty easy to complete the process, and based on Joe's reaction, well worth it.
I was surprised and I was glad, so it was nice,
Education and the Catholic faith have always been pillars of the Quinlivan family. Several of Joe's kids even became Catholic school teachers, making this honor even more special.
Looking at his diploma, he just kept saying he never thought he would really graduate high school. And it was just a nice moment for him because he made sure all of us graduated high school, and he wanted all of us to go on to college and to have an easier and better life.
Joe proving you're never too old to receive your high school diploma. In Sheepshead Bay, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Most of the young men who enlisted to fight in World War II left their high school studies before graduation. Michael Severino was one of those guys. Currents News' Michelle Powers tells us he's also one of the heroes who watched the American flag fly like never before, the moment it was raised on Mount Suribachi.
The Battle of Io lasts 30 days.
Broadcast never heard by boots on the ground, but a reality Michael Severino lived.
The Marines had landed on the beach, right down on the bottom, below Mount Suribachi. Mount Suribachi was shooting down on them.
Raining artillery and casting a deadly shadow well over 500 feet high, the volcano gave the Japanese a vantage point to fire onto Americans storming the beach. The battle for Iwo Jima was one of the bloodiest in the Pacific, and then 22-year-old Michael's life.
The captain told us, he says, well, here's what it is. You're going to go on the island, and the first thing you're going to do, you're going to dig a hole. He says, because that's where you're going to sleep. Right away, I started digging. I didn't waste the time for that.
Now a different sound fills his days and nights. Until 2 weeks ago, when Mr. Severino was hospitalized after a fall, he spent all his time at Our Lady of Peace residence in Middle Village, making ceramics. It's his new calling, but his history always seems to seep into the clay.
Destroying enemy troops in underground pockets.
The whole island was flat. All sand, no trees, no bushes, no nothing. No buildings or anything like that.
Every inch of Iwo Jima, a battleground.
Marines dig out hidden and camouflaged installations.
The Japanese fight through a series of underground tunnels, killing over 6,000 Americans, though Mr. Severino's ears still ring. It's not just from the blast of machine guns and flamethrowers, but the distant echo of a sound more sweet.
When that flag went up, all the boats were blasting their horns out. Oh, they were really blasting away because they got the flag up on top of Iwo Jima. And they lost about 3,000 Marines on that beach.
He says he now knows why he was spared. For those who fight for it, life has a simple, special mold those protected will never know.
The Lord was with me because they knew I had to come back to Queen of Peace to make the ceramics for the Queen of Peace.
Michelle Powers, Currents News.
Still to come on Currents News, more on our special salute to service and sacrifice. An inside look at the changing face of the U.S. military. One population is expected to double in the next 10 years. And please check out one of our latest features in the tablet, the Our Diocesan Family page. That's where you can send in photos of your family receiving certain sacraments, such as baptism, first communion, confirmation, and marriage. For more information and to submit your pictures, go to thetablet.org/ourdiocesanfamily. We'll be right back. This Veterans Day, we want to take a closer look at the growing diversity in the United States Armed Forces. Latinos are now the fastest growing minority group in the military. Currents News' Emily Drooby has the story of how one vet's experience has been shaped by both his faith and his heritage.
Of heaven and earth.
As a newly ordained priest, Father Edwin Ortiz spends his days serving God, but he used to serve his country.
I had always had that desire of being in the military.
He spent 3 years in the Navy as a hospital corpsman. He was deployed to Japan.
You're walking up to the ship and it's huge.
Father Ortiz is part of the changing landscape of the U.S. military. Each year, it becomes more diverse. Hispanics in particular are the fastest growing minority population. The most recent statistics show 6% of U.S. military veterans are Latino, and that number is expected to double by 2024.
Being in the military, you become part of this big family who's going to challenge you, but they're going to challenge you not to demean you. They're going to challenge you to help you grow.
Father Ortiz encourages other people in the Latino community to join the military, but one of his biggest challenges while deployed, finding time to practice his faith.
It really showed me what my life would be like without God.
And it was a life he didn't like. Father Ortiz decided to re-enter the seminary. He was ordained in June and now serves at St. Athanasius in Bensonhurst alongside another veteran.
We share that bond.
Deacon Anthony Mamalidi spent over 30 years in the Army. Both he and Father Ortiz say there's a lot of similarities when it comes to serving God and country.
We're called to be selfless servants. We're called to give our lives for a cause greater than ourselves.
That desire to serve that really came while working those humanitarian projects with the Marines.
He might be done serving his country, but he'll never be done serving God. In Bensonhurst, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
And we couldn't be more thankful for our heroes. That is Currents News. I'm Tamara Lane, and we'd like to give our vets one more salute. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.